What is a survival myth that is completely wrong and could get you killed? The YouTube videos on how to unarm an attacker from close range. You'll die before you can yell yeehaw. Yeah, if you have not trained extensively in real self-defense, you should never try to fight an armed opponent. Just give them what they want or run. Those videos usually have the person letting the moves be put on them very easily, when in reality a lot of those moves need to be executed at extremely fast speed with practice precision. Otherwise you will just end up in a wrestling match against someone with a knife, which usually won't end well. There's a video of a soldier showing how to win in a knife fight. The countdown starts and as soon as possible he just books it. The first mistake is to look for food and water first before having a shelter up to keep yourself dry and warm. When I say shelter first, it includes having a fire too, which I forgot to mention. When you are wet and exposed to the elements, your core body temperature can drop and you can get hypothermia if it gets too cold, and you would burn more calories than necessary. A big reason to building a shelter too is to also keep yourself off the ground, because the ground is an infinite heat sink, which means you lose your body heat way faster than you would think and will be more exposed to the cold elements. Guys, yes, it's good to be near a water source, but remember that it's always colder around rivers, streams, lakes, and oceans. Make sure you are able to easily gather shelter, fire material within the area, plus finding a prime location to set up shelter. If you have to forage for food, avoid mushrooms entirely. Odds are so slim you will find an edible kind that you're much better off looking for things like nuts, seeds, and berries. Edit. This is not the myth. This is the truth. If you ever find yourself in snake country, make as much noise as possible. Most people want to avoid snakes, so stay quiet, but they are more scared of you than you are of them. Talk loudly, stomp, but obviously keep an eye and ear out for any fellas who don't want you to be there. Source: Australian. If done right, a tourniquet should hurt like a, and you're going to want to loosen it, but in the words of Egon Spengler, it would be bad. Gradually loosening an applied tourniquet over time is a thing I still see in first aid training videos for some reason. Don't do that. Once a tourniquet is on, remember and mark the person if you can what time it was applied, and leave the rest to doctors in a stable environment. Loosening a tourniquet may result in blood loss returning, which requires retightening it. Tightening, loosening repeatedly may cause on top of additional blood loss blood to pool up inside the limb, which can cause even more damage. Edit. It's going to take over 2 hours for muscle, nerve damage to start occurring, and about 6 until everything is dead and needing an amputation. Wear a seatbelt. There's myths about it being bad if you go into a lake or there's a fire, but one, that is an incredibly tiny proportion of car crashes, and two, if you're in that situation, you're far more likely to be knocked out and die of inaction if you're not wearing a seatbelt. I know this is a mundane tip, but you're far more likely to be in a life-threatening car crash than be stabbed or be in a falling elevator. Wear a seatbelt. Rescue breaths are wildly overrated in most movies and TV shows. You'll see someone in cardiac arrest, and the rescuer will stop giving compressions and focus on breathing into a person's mouth and blamo. Awake, alert, alive. Nope, don't do that. Your body does store a fairly decent amount of oxygen in its blood at all times. If someone in front of you ODs and their mouth is covered with saliva, vomit, or someone collapses in front of you of a suspected cardiac arrest, your plan of action is twofold. 1. Are they breathing? Do they have a pulse? This is easy to up, especially in a moment of panic. My rule as an EMS provider is that if you don't feel it in 10 seconds, it's not there. Start compressions. If they are not in cardiac arrest, they will let you know, and the law covers you under Good Samaritan clauses in most of these cases. 2. If you are the only person attending to this body, do not stop and give rescue breaths if help is on the way and will be there soon. It takes about 4 to 7 decent compressions to get blood recirculating in the body after stopping to give mouth to mouth. That's a lot of blood, carrying a lot of vital oxygen reserves that aren't making it to the brain. Obviously, if you're a long way out from help, and you feel safe to do so, give rescue breaths. But it should never be priority 1. By the way, if you hear ribs crack, make a face. Make vomit noises if you have to. Tell the person their bones are grossing you out. But don't stop compressions. Because what are compressions? That's right, they are number 1. Herbivorous animals are friendly and peaceful, so you are safe being around them, and the presence will show you where food is. Seriously, everything from cows to deer can and will kill you if you make it angry. It is usually a good idea if you are in the wilds not to get near any large wild animal, but herbivores can often be even more aggressive than the predators. If a predator attacks you, you have a fairly good chance of scaring it off, especially if it's smaller than you, because it's likely only looking for food. If a herbivore attacks you, you're fucked because it genuinely wants to kill you. If it's a predator, you just need to convince it that you aren't worth the effort, especially if it's not too hungry. If it's a herbivore, that's just going to make it want to kill you more. If you get stabbed with anything, don't pull it out, since it could be the thing that's preventing you from bleeding out. Instead, immobilize it and go to the hospital where they can stop the bleeding when they remove the object. It won't kill you, but don't pee on a jellyfish sting. It will actually release more of the toxin. Pee directly on the jellyfish to show dominance. You can hydrate from soda. If that's all you have, drink it. Fallout New Vegas tells me otherwise. You get a cap though. Not quite as sexy and interesting as the rest of these. But if you're walking alone at night, putting a key between each finger with the thought that you can punch someone and they'll be impaled by 3 keys is useless. You're much more likely to hurt the webbing on your fingers, since the grip you have on each key will be really weak. Instead, put a single key between your thumb and forefinger parallel to your thumb and make a fist. This still isn't a great defense, but it is an improvement over simply a fist. Also, don't try to kick a man in the crotch unless you have an amazing shot, in which case, you're probably better off running anyway. If you miss or don't kick hard enough, both of which are more likely in the case when you're likely panicking, you're just going to cause mild discomfort and piss him off even more. You do not need to wait 24 hours to report a missing person. If you think someone is missing, report it as such. The faster a missing person report is filed, the greater the chance the person will be found. Don't eat snow to stay hydrated if you're in a winter survival situation. Losing the heat to the snow while eating it is more dangerous than dehydration. Heat it up or let it melt in a container first to lose less heat. Cotton wicks moisture. Cotton is probably the worst material to wear in an outdoor survival situation because it holds moisture and in doing so loses its ability to keep you warm. Follow flying birds to find water. They can simply be flying to spend a night anywhere, so we can't rely on them. Fish are the ones you should follow to find water. That's why I always carry a goldfish on desert expeditions. Sticking your finger up a dog's. I've read this a few times. Not a good idea. Best way to deal with a dog attack is to try to move away slowly, sideways with your arms at your sides so that you're not threatening. Don't look at the eyes and don't smile. Both are seen as a challenge. Don't run away. The dog will instinctively chase you. Get up high if you can. Dogs can't climb very well. If hits the fan, do the opposite of looking unthreatening. Stand tall with your arms in the air and growl or roar. If there's something nearby, throw it at the dog to make it think twice. Wrap clothing around your arm to hand to the dog should it go in for a bite. You're pretty much guaranteed to be bit, so make it in a place that is less important and less likely to bleed out. Don't lose your footing or fall to the ground. You'll be toast. Don't pull away from the dog if it has bitten you. This will cause more damage. Once the dog has bitten you, it probably won't let go. Aim to kill or maim the dog. Fingers in the eyes are good. Jumping on the dog with all your body weight is better. If you break their ribs, they will probably give up. Staying away from aggressive dogs is your best bet. That you can eat what animals eat. Not true. Animals have different digestion systems that aren't the same as a human's. I've heard if it's a bird you shouldn't eat what they eat, but you can eat what bears eat. Still not too helpful unless there's an abundance of bears around you. Drinking alcohol to stay warm. You sweat. Your blood will rush to your skin and you will freeze, die much faster. Sucking a snakebite. It will often make it worse. Australian doc here. There is so much misinformation on here. What you want to do is stop the venom from traveling from the site of the bite into the lymphatic system and then into the bloodstream. Do not suck, cut, wash or otherwise investigate the wound. Edit. Do not try to catch or kill the snake. Identifying the kind of snake is not worth the risk of a second bite and the delay in getting to your other priorities. Priority 1: Get away from the snake. Priority 2: Get help. Get someone nearby to call an ambulance, or worst case scenario, call one yourself. Priority 3: Stay still. Moving your muscles is what helps pump the fluid through your lymphatic system and to the lymph nodes, where it can enter the bloodstream quickest. Ideally keep the bite below your heart, but immobilization is the most important thing. Priority 4: If there is someone with you, get them to apply a pressure dressing to tightly compress the whole limb. This can greatly slow the flow of lymph and buy you hours. The issue with a tourniquet as opposed to full limb compression is that you're not actually preventing the spread of lymph up the limb. Taking the tourniquet off then becomes very risky for a sudden influx of venom into the central circulation, and has serious risks of permanent damage and loss to the limb.